goal has always been to build, to shape, to grow. The forces of history and the dreams of the future form our society. To advance these visions, we have to continuously rethink and challenge old notions of progress. We seek new ways of living well, ways of sustaining the environment around us as we grow within it. The definition of progress has changed over time, but the nature of progress has not. We progress as individuals, as societies, and cultures. We are shaped by forces as large as nations, but made possible by something as small as the human mind. Ideas are the seeds of all progress, all change, and all innovation. We have to nurture the right ideas, the ones that lead to the greatest gains, advantages, and development. In this way, we can make our vision of the future possible. In some cases, we will have to tend the seeds with ideas and actions that bring forth slow but steady progress through public policies, investments, and social acceptance. In others, we must bravely propel new ideas forward at light speed. We seek a better understanding of where and when these innovations can grow unimpeded. We look for potential. We create environments, offer support, and enable these ideas to give the future the shape envisioned by our collective imagination. In sharing knowledge, we pursue a better understanding of where and when these innovations can succeed. Seeking these answers is a daunting task, but it is why we are here. To harness innovation, to power the future. Welcome to the Asia Clean Energy Forum 2018.
Thank you very much to the dancers. Let me please welcome on stage Director General Woochong of the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department. Please, DG.
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you, David, for introduction. First of all, it's incredible to be here back again at the center stage of the Asian Clean Energy Forum. I've taken a break of about 4 years, being the secretary for the last 4 years, and I thank Vice President Susantono for bringing me back to this arena. Now I look around and I see so many faces, so many friends, old friends, and so many new friends. So I can't help but to reflect back on the last 12, 13 years when we were going through this journey together. So as you probably heard, the official start of this, the launch of the Clean Energy Forum, Asia Clean Energy Forum, was in 2006. And I vividly remember because that was in the middle of the World Cup in Germany. And I felt like it was getting a jet lag because we were working very hard during the day and spending all night watching football matches. And that was actually a good mechanism to keep the focus day and night among all of the colleagues that joined together. So that was my first year in this department that was in charge of organizing this program. And from 2006 to this year, ADB has been in an incredible journey towards competitive, sustainable, and low-carbon Asia and the Pacific region. It's been a privilege to be part of that journey, and we could not have done it without all of your support. The seeds of the clean energy program were actually planted a year before 2006, in July 2005, when ADB announced a bold ambition to increase our clean energy program from about $500 million to over $1 billion by 2008. And to kickstart that program, we organized a relatively small conference, and it was called the Energy Efficiency Initiative Program, under the overall umbrella of the Clean Energy and Environment Program under the ADB. And this gave basically a turbo boost to our ADB's investments in the clean energy space, initially focusing quite a lot on the demand and supply side of energy efficiency, as well as rolling out investments in the renewable energy space as well. And in 2009, we updated our energy policy, which increased our target from $1 billion to $2 billion a year by 2013, and we reached that target as well 2 years later. And since then, we've been consistently hitting that investment mark in clean energy. So in that initial little conference of about 80 people, it was a small one, but it was a very effective one because we had the right people there. We had stakeholders from various segments of the governments, both the technical as well as the financing and planning, as well as the experts from the private sector, the donor community, academia, and of course civil society organizations as well. And I'm glad I'm seeing the same group but more in 13 years later, and glad to see that this family has grown to over 1,000, and I hope it's going to continue to grow. So in the last 4 years, as a corporate secretary, I've been observing from the side, and I can see that the ADB's clean energy team, led by Yongping and colleagues from all over the world, as well as ADB, has turned this good program into a great one. And I hope together we can continue to work on this and make this into the greatest forum in clean energy in the world. So I'm looking very much forward to working with you all. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Bambang Susantono, Vice President of Knowledge Management and Knowledge Management in ADB, to welcome you to the Asian Clean Energy Forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Director General distinguished guests, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this 2018 Asia Clean Energy Forum. Let me first thank to our co-organization, the U.S. Agency for International Development, the Korea Energy Agency, and the ADB Institute. The Asia Clean Energy Forum has emerged as a leading platform in the Asia-Pacific regions since its organization in 2006. The forum, initiated by ADB pioneers, demonstrates our advocacy and promotions of clean energy programs and projects. This is an integral part of our strategy to increase clean energy technical assistance, lending, and investment in our developing member countries. The steady growth of the forum from only 150 participants in the beginning to more than 1,100 from over 70 countries registered for this year demonstrate the increasing appetite for networking, learning, and also knowledge sharing to support improvement in energy system development in Asia and the Pacific regions. The theme of this year's forum is harnessing innovations to power the future. We are amidst of the fourth industrial revolutions where highly disruptive technology such as artificial intelligence, blockchains, and the Internet of Things provide more opportunity to leapfrog to advance energy systems. It is clear that the future of development rests in innovations. Innovation will offer new and improved options to resolve the persistent problems that continue to challenge the energy sector and enable us to meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals number 7 to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy to all. Our claim is to leave no one behind as we grow and develop in our regions. The forum this year will provide multiple platforms and tracks on energy efficiency, renewable energy, access to energy, and future technology to debate and explore clean energy concepts that can help realize the visions of a clean energy future. 16 deep dive workshops on topics such as waste to energy efficiency in cooling, energy storage, and carbon capture utilization and storage, just to name a few. And 2 World Cafe sessions where you can meet ADB energy officers and technology entrepreneurs who are doing work on the ground to improve lives in Asia and the Pacific. Distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, last year, as part of ADB 50th anniversary, we reflected on the past development progress in our regions. Looking forward in the pursuit of a sustainable future, as guided by the SDGs, we face expansive and diverse challenges to accelerate the deployment of clean energy technology. Energy demand is projected to almost double in Asia and Pacific region by 2030. ADB has estimated the region will need to invest $14.7 trillion in power infrastructure between 2016 and 2030 to meet this growing demand. Rapid and rapidly expanding deployment of advanced technologies such as photovoltaics, battery storage, electric vehicles, and smart grids highlight progress in global energy systems toward meeting not only SDG 7 that focuses on energy, but also supporting SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities, as well as SDG 13 on climate actions. The ADB 2018 Asia Development Outlook draws attention to both opportunities and concerns presented by new technology across society, including the energy sector. New technologies alter the skills required of the workforce and may cause unemployment as some firms downsize or close. They make the less skilled more likely to experience lower wage growth, worsening income inequality. But new technologies also drive higher productivity, the foundation for better paid jobs and economic growth. In the energy sector, technological change and economic growth create new occupations, such as solar designers and installers, and new businesses by entrepreneurs, some that are featured at the forum as part of our new energy leaders programs. Distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the energy technology landscape will continue to evolve. ADB pledges to be an active partner, managing this change and accelerating innovation for sustainable development in the regions through innovative financings, partnerships, and institutional capacity building. We ensure there are innovative elements in all our energy projects. So let me give you some examples. In India, we are implementing high voltage transmission expansion and upgrades to integrate several gigawatts of new solar and wind capacity into the existing grid. By strengthening the grid, it can ensure that significant shares of renewable energy can be deployed over the coming years. In the Cook Islands, we are introducing energy storage technology to facilitate 100% renewable electricity. The storage system can help to ensure high-quality electricity services 24 hours a day. In the People's Republic of China, we have established the Regional Emission Reductions and Pollution Control Facility that will showcase how advanced technology, including hydrogen-based low-emission transport, geothermal-based district heating, biogas and organic fertilizer production facilities, and smart microgrids can be adopted on a large scale and reduce emissions from heavy industries. ADB Clean Energy Financing Partnership Facility, the High-Level Technology Fund, and other funds provide grants for technical assistance, pilot projects, investment support, and capacity building to encourage innovative technology in every energy project and to ensure best-in-class approach are used. Ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, ADB pledges to continue to innovate and find solutions for our shared energy challenges. This week, experts in the field will meet an audience eager to learn from them, and we can all learn how to harness innovations to power our clean energy future. Thank you, and let me welcome you once again to the 2018 Asia Clean Energy Forum. I wish you all to have a productive discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, VP Susantono, for those remarks. And I think it's rather fitting at a conference on innovation that we have some technical challenges. I think it helps to remind us to be humble with the power of technology. So I think this is a good reminder of the challenge and how we need to be practical in what we do. So thanks to the work of the sound people as they work this out. Please let me introduce Ms. Carrie Thompson, Deputy Assistant Administrator of the Bureau for Economic Growth and Education and Environment from the U.S. Agency for International Development. Ms. Thompson, please.
Does this not work? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues. On behalf of the U.S. Agency for International Development, it is really a great pleasure for me to welcome you to this year's Asia Clean Energy Forum. Before taking up my current responsibilities in Washington overseeing energy and environment programs, I spent 4 years at USAID's Regional Development Mission for Asia. I'm really impressed to see how this forum has grown. Look at this crowd. First, I'd like to give some thanks to our distinguished colleagues from the Asian Development Bank and ADB Vice President Susantono for their continued partnership in co-organizing this important forum. The Korea Energy Agency Director General Youngman Woo and KEA for co-organizing this event and their ongoing leadership. And most importantly, the members of the Asia Clean Energy community here today, that's all of you, you are all truly powering this sector. Esteemed guests and colleagues, the U.S. government is proud to work with the Asian Development Bank, the Korea Energy Agency, and so many partners here at ASEF and across the region. For the past 13 years, ASEF has convened experts from across the globe to tackle the region's most pressing energy challenges. The people in this room have witnessed and in many ways fueled the clean energy transformation in Asia. And that is why we are here this week, to learn, to network, and to share the innovations that will power the future. For 12 of ASEF's 13 years, the US government has supported this forum, and we remain committed to promoting access to sustainable, reliable, and affordable energy across the globe. Our priorities include access to open and transparent markets, promoting private investment in resilient infrastructure, and pursuing a global energy system that is cleaner and more efficient. Let me speak a little bit about USAID's programs in energy in the region. To do all of the foregoing, USAID, on behalf of the US government, promotes clean and sustainable energy through robust development programming and technical assistance across Asia. USAID's energy programs focus on power sector planning, competitive procurement of new generation, grid integration of variable renewable energy, and promoting private sector investment. For example, through our Greening the Grid program, USAID has supported countries in the region, such as the Philippines and India, to integrate more variable renewable energy into their power grids. Our partnership with the Government of India's National System Operator, for example, has proven that India's target of 175 gigawatts of installed renewable capacity by 2022, including 100 gigawatts of solar, is in fact achievable. In Lao PDR and in Afghanistan, USAID is supporting utility-scale solar projects through a reverse auction process. Unlike traditional auctions where the buyer offering the highest price wins, in a reverse auction, bidders compete to supply electricity at the lowest price, driving down costs. In Vietnam, USAID is working with the government to develop power purchase agreements that promote direct energy purchasing allowing businesses to source 100% clean energy for their operations while boosting Vietnam's renewable energy market. Over the past year, our technical assistance in the area of distributed photovoltaics, or rooftop solar, has also been significant. In Thailand, we collaborated with the distribution utilities and policymakers to analyze tariff impacts that might result from solar roof deployment, which turned out to be minimal. In India, USAID has helped deploy 580 megawatts of solar rooftop across 11 states. And now, International Solar Alliance, the World Bank, and others have adopted USAID's training materials. USAID's energy programs in the region also help to mobilize private investment in clean energy. Our activities here in Manila and in Bangkok leveraged over $350 million in clean energy investment over the past year alone. In Pakistan, USAID support to transmission system upgrades will increase energy access to an estimated 3 million Pakistanis and further mobilize $1.5 billion in private investment. USAID's programs capitalize on the energy sector transition that has occurred over the last decade. The falling costs for renewable power generation, the ambitious national regional clean energy targets, and new innovations and disruptive technologies continue to inform our energy policy and approach to development assistance. Bloomberg New Energy Finance projects that new power generation will attract $4.8 billion in investment in Asia Pacific through 2040, and estimates that installed capacity will more than double in Asia Pacific as electricity generation grows by 86%. Renewables are clearly the engine of this transformation, rising from 22% of the regional energy mix in 2016 to 51% of generation projected for 2040. Harnessing innovation to power the future, the theme of this year's forum, recognizes the important role that innovation in technologies, institutions, and practices plays in the energy transition. Renewable energy auctions are just one example of such innovation. IRENA reported the number of countries that have adopted renewable energy auctions has increased tenfold between 2005 and 2017. Reverse auctions have now emerged as a global best practice for transparent energy generation procurement to attract globally competitive pricing. Auctions have been particularly important in driving down the cost of renewables, which are estimated to account for 70% of all new generation investments projected through 2040. We hope to see you on Friday at the USAID Deep Dive Workshop on Renewable Energy Auctions in Asia. Yesterday, we organized another deep dive workshop on variable renewable energy grid integration. I'm sure some of you were there. Together with GIZ, the US Department of Energy's National Renewable Energy Laboratory, we focused the discussion on innovative technologies and policy solutions to meet renewable energy targets and bring high amounts of variable electricity into the power system. These innovations from the participants and partners here in the room are critical to accelerating the global energy transition. Game-changing technologies, forward-thinking policies, and new approaches to mobilizing investment will enable us to navigate a clean, reliable, and affordable energy future. So I hope this week, both the deep dives and the main forum generate exciting discussion, innovative ideas, and fruitful partnerships among so many of the groups here today. I would like to close by thanking you all for your participation and for your dedication to advancing clean energy in the region. I wish you the best of success this week and beyond as we work towards smarter, cleaner energy solutions in Asia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thompson. Our next speaker, I'd like to welcome Mr. Youngman Woo, Director General from the Global Project Division of the Korean Energy Agency. Please. No, that's not working. You have to do that.
Good morning. distinguished guests, and valuable participants. I'm Young-Man, the Director General of KEA. Since the President of KEA resigned recently, I would like to address the welcome remarks on behalf of the President of KEA. It's a great honor to welcome you to the Asia Clean Energy Forum in 2018, which marked its 13th anniversary this year. Before, I would like to express my deep gratitude to Mr. Susantono, the Vice President of the Asian Development Bank, and Ms. Thompson, the Deputy Assistant of the United States Agency for International Development, and Mr. Naoyuki, the Dean of the ADB Institute, for sharing your valuable time today. I also extend my appreciation to the ADB personnel who have made a remarkable contribution on this event. Nowadays, we are witnessing that energy revolution leads massive transition of a global energy paradigm toward a more eco-friendly and sustainable future. At the forefront of a major change in energy sector, ADB has declared Strategy 2030 to boost Asia-Pacific region in a prosperous, tolerant, and sustainable way. I deeply respect and support for ADB's meaningful movement. With the initiation of the Strategy 2030, I strongly believe that the Asia-Pacific region will open a new chapter of history, which pursues elimination of poverty and inequality. Also, it will enhance ability for climate change mitigation and lead us to the greater sustainable society. As all of the guests here are well aware of, the Asia Clean Energy Forum is Asia's premier networking and knowledge sharing event that is jointly organized by ADB, USAID, and KEA to dedicate clean energy and energy access issues. This forum will break down silos and help us exchange expertise each other. Especially, the ASAP set the theme of harnessing innovation to power the future this year, which is targeting to provide us the most innovative and enterprising platform for energy access, energy efficiency, and renewable energy. The world is facing a rapid shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy and transforming the existing energy systems to a smarter energy system with the fourth industrial revolution. In this regard, Korea has introduced the renewable energy 30-20 strategy to increase the share of the renewable energy power generation from 7% to 20% by 2030. KEA, the only one government agency in Korea that leads policies and programs on energy transition. And I would like to share the efforts of KEA on energy access, energy efficiency, and renewable energy. First, KEA supports policy consulting for developing countries, such as Vietnam and Uzbekistan, with the successful experience of energy access policies. In addition, KEA and ADB have collaborated 2 years ago to install solar PV hybrid system on Philippines' Cobrado Island for 24-hour energy supply. This year, KEA is planning to supply solar PV and ESS to Cambodian floating village in Siem Reap, where needs more stable energy supply. KEA combines core technology of the fourth industrial revolution, such as AI, IoT, cloud, and big data with energy to enhance energy efficiency. As KEA is responsible for the implementation of safe and clean energy transition in Korea, KE has served the programs of renewable energy 30-20 strategy with creating best practice. Since 1960s, Korea has developed rapidly with the support from other countries. I believe that now it is time to repay those support to other countries by sharing our technology and experience. I sincerely look forward to see the ASAP opens great opportunities to do so. KA promised to continue our steps forward to make our society more sustainable with ADB. I hope to seek practical inspiration from the best practice that will be introduced and shared in this forum. Lastly, I would love to introduce all of the IREC Seoul 2019. The International Renewable Energy Conference, IREC, will be held in Seoul, Korea in October 2019. Korea will share the best practice and experience of Korea's energy transition with the world at IREC in 2019. I would appreciate your interest and active participation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wu, for those comments. And now I would like to welcome Dr. Naoyuki Yoshino, Dean and CEO of the ADB Institute.
Good morning. I would like to thank ADB, Vice President Susantono, and USAID and Korean Energy Agency for organizing very important conference. ADB Institute is located in Tokyo, and Japan has a drastic change after 2011 tsunami incident. Earthquake and tsunami hit Tokyo, Fukushima, and then a nuclear power plant was destroyed. After those incidents, many Japanese people have realized renewable and clean energy is important. There are two sources of finance to those energies. One is a big hydropower or big clean energy. And Asia now is growing for aging population. Pension funds are growing in many countries. And it is a very good sources of finance to provide those big clean renewable energy. Insurance and pension funds can be targeting those investments. Secondly, in Japan, we have created community-type small investments. One solar power or wind power was constructed by collecting 250 people in the town. And those wind power and solar power are growing many places in Japan. And some of the elderly people want to donate money to those clean energy. So in Asian countries, I think there are two ways to finance. One is big project coming from insurance pension funds, and then small scale project comes from hometown crowdfunding collected by individuals in the region. At the same time, renewable energy and clean energies are very low rate of return. And it is very difficult for private investors to put their money, especially pension funds and insurance. We have to think about how to increase the rate of return from clean energy. There are two ways to increase rate of return for clean energy. One is charging tax for NOx or CO2. Many people say exhaustion gases are very difficult to compute and to detect. However, the satellite technology can estimate how much CO2 and NOx is created in each region. Then by use of those satellite pictures, we can estimate those exhaustion gases, and it will be possible to charge tax on those fossil fuel gases. Then those tax can be transferred to renewable energy to increase rate of return. Secondly, renewable energy can create big spillover effects into the region. Energy supply can create good manufacturing industries into the region, and agricultural farmers can make their production much more efficient. Then income tax, corporate tax, property tax revenues will rise after the clean energy. Then those incremental tax revenues can also be returned to energy investors. So there are many, many ways to bring private sector money into clean energy. Without private sector money, it is very difficult to develop clean energy in much faster way. Lastly, even the hydro is possible to be community level. We used to think about hydro is a big dam, but current technology can provide very efficient hydro energy supply with small river. The small motor can provide community level energy based on technology. And those small scale hydro engines can also be set up many towns and remote area. That will supply enough energy for every day for the town. Lastly, not only to constructing these energy equipments, but we learned maintenance and repairs are very important. In some countries, they started solar energy or hydro small engines, but nobody knows how to repair it. Then once, 2-3 years later, the engine has been a little broken, and then it was just disposed. So I think setting up and creating these energies, but also skills to maintain those new energy resources will be very important. Lastly, I hope we can learn a lot from today's discussion, but the most important thing is what you have learned, you should bring it back to your home country and then to start to implementing into your policy. Thank you very much for inviting today.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the organizers who were involved this year in planning this event. This is an event that demonstrates some great partnerships between different organizations across Asia, and it's a pleasure to work with these partners. So now what I'd like to do, I'd like to call up Yongping Zhai, the chief of our energy sector group at ADB, along with our 3 keynote speakers. If you could take a seat on stage, Mr. Laszlo Varro, the chief economist from the International Energy Agency, Mr. Dipal Chandra Barua, co-founder of the Grameen Bank and founder and chairman of the Bright Green Energy Foundation, and Ms. Monica Araya, founder and director from the Costa Rica Limpia. So we're going to hear from each of these speakers this morning, and then have a panel discussion led by Mr. Yongping Zhai, who will have a chance to ask some more probing questions on their presentation. So first, I'd like to welcome Mr. Laszlo Varro, Chief Economist from the International Energy Agency, to give his remarks.
Thank you very much. Can I have my slides up? Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm going to talk to you how do we see the role of technology and innovation in the clean energy transition. And first of all, I would make the observation that in the past 2.5 years, ever since the Paris Agreement was signed, I was struck by the very widespread narrative of a mission accomplished. The great climate agreement is signed, renewables are now cheap, the fossil fuels are over, the world is saved. I hear this very, very often in many, many places in the world. Unfortunately, when I look at the hard data, what I see in the hard data is a very, very slow progress in energy efficiency, hardly any change in the global average carbon intensity of energy supply, fossil fuels supplying more than half of the growth of global energy consumption, so renewables even failing to catch up with global energy demand growth rather than decarbonizing the energy system, and increasing carbon dioxide emissions. So I think a proper narrative of the Paris Agreement, in my view, is that a monitoring team made it to the base camp with a really, really tough climb ahead. We are at the base camp and we have a very tough climb tomorrow. That's what we need to do. And of course, the energy transition is not taking place in a static society. An energy transition is taking place in a society globally where if you take the number of people who leave their villages and move to Manila, move to Jakarta, move to Sao Paulo or Nairobi, that's a Shanghai-sized city emerging in every 4 months globally. And unfortunately, in many countries, this very rapid urbanization, this Shanghai in every 4 months, is being constructed without any proper attention on energy efficiency. And this is a major issue because retrofitting a city to be energy efficient 20 years later is far more difficult and far more expensive than doing it right at the first place. So I believe that the governments of rapidly urbanizing emerging countries, primarily here in developing Asia, but also in Africa and Latin America, today have a historical opportunity, a once-in-a-century opportunity to do it right in the first place. And I would highlight the unique importance of air conditioning, because this urbanization and global GDP growth is increasingly taking place in hot climates. Air conditioning represents around 20% of the growth of global electricity consumption, and there is a massive potential to improve the energy performance of our cooling systems. Now, technological progress is not uniform, and it's not progressing in a broad-based, even manner. Just imagine an alternative universe where we had a large-scale deployment of geothermal energy providing baseload renewable generation replacing baseload coal, and we had a large-scale deployment of biogas replacing natural gas in our gas turbines. Now, in that alternative universe, we could have a copy-paste transition to our renewable energy system without worrying too much about the electricity market design, network operations, or the electricity system. But we are not in this alternative universe. We are in the universe where wind and solar investment is running at roughly $1 billion a day. It is really robust. Investment into dispatchable renewables like geothermal and biogas is a running error. And investment into non-electricity producing renewable technologies like biofuels or renewable heat is an even smaller rounding error. And this has a very important implications because we don't have a clean energy revolution. We have a wind and solar revolution. And those technologies require a profound transformation of the electricity system. Now, given that the most successful technologies generate electricity, the historical trend of the increasing importance of electricity is going to continue even with a weak climate policy, but it is electricity generating technologies which are our best weapons against climate change. So we also think that the transition to a low carbon economy will rapidly increase the importance of electricity in the global energy system. In fact, for several decades, the oil and gas industry was talking about wind and solar as the alternative energy. Very soon, we are going to call oil the alternative energy, because the basic principle of the energy system is going to be that we are going to use electricity in every application where it is possible. We are still going to use oil, but we are going to use oil as an alternative energy in applications like aviation or shipping, where electricity is too difficult or too expensive. Now, one very important task, of course, globally is to bring that electricity to everybody. Perhaps the most striking image of global inequality is a satellite picture of Africa at night, which looks like this today. And if you consider the fact that around 90 million kids in Africa go to schools where the school itself does not have electricity. So the implications of this darkness on human development are staggering. Now, this century, we had two major victories over energy poverty: the electrification of the Chinese countryside and the electrification of the urban regions of India. And both of these victories were achieved by building a new big coal plant every week. And the victory was achieved at the price of a serious environmental cost. Now, we think that with the emerging new technologies, the electrification of Africa and the electrification of the other regions of developing Asia, where still there is a significant energy poverty problem, can proceed with a completely different technological approach. we run together, working with the United Nations, a sustainable development scenario of achieving electrification by 2030. And we think that this can be done with 3 pillars. One, decentralized off-grid renewables in remote regions. The second is large-scale on-grid renewables, wind farms, hydropower, supplying the centralized grid. And the third, Africa is abundant in natural gas. In fact, the amount of gas which is flared in African gas fields would be sufficient for 100 million people. And natural gas can provide a relatively clean complement to the renewables. So if our sustainable development scenario is implemented, this is how Africa will look like at night by 2030. And this is, of course, how the rural regions of India should look like, and the rural regions of Indonesia and the remote islands of developing Asia should look like as well. However, I should also say that there is a tendency to talk about renewable energy and decentralized energy as if the two were the same. The two are very, very different. Off-grid renewable systems play a fantastically useful role in remote regions and in small islands. But in a rapidly urbanizing part of the world, like developing Asia, the large majority of energy supply will always be on-grid and centralized. If you run the numbers of how much energy you consume in the city of Manila, in the city of Jakarta, in Bangkok, it is just simply physically impossible to supply that with off-grid solutions. There is not enough space. The urban density is too high. So there will be a fair contribution from rooftop solar projects, but people are not going to cut the wire. People will remain connected to the grid. The grid remains an absolutely essential asset, but the role of the grid will fundamentally change. The role of the grid will be less top-down, and the role of the grid will be more multidimensional. The grid will link various producers and consumers with each other in a multidimensional fashion. Now, one way to achieve that is an intense digitization of the energy system. And there is a major opportunity here, because we think that today, electricity consumption in a typical household is dominated by appliances which are not smart. Yeah. But we think that the electricity consumption associated with non-smart appliances is going to peak quite soon, in a couple of years globally. And more than 100% of the growth of residential electricity consumption is going to come from internet-connected devices. So there is a major opportunity to take advantage of the emerging new technologies to link these devices with the consumer, with the system operator, and harness the inherent flexibility of the demand side and make sure that demand can actively participate in the energy transition. Now, this will not happen automatically. This is not only a technological innovation I'm talking about. This is also a business model innovation and a regulatory innovation as well, because in many countries, the regulatory system currently does not support the emergence of such smart demand-side solutions. Now, the electricity network has been a regulated monopoly for 100 years. And don't make me wrong, the bulk of the electricity network will have to remain a regulated monopoly. But new technologies create competitive solutions at the edges. We see an increasing maturity of the undersea direct current cable technology. And I should tell you that despite the fact that when you look at the map of Asia, this part of the world is a no-brainer place to apply the undersea direct current cable technology with a lot of islands and peninsulas and difficult geography. But Asia is badly lagging behind Europe in actually doing it. In Europe, we already have projects like Scotland to Norway, Germany to Norway, Sweden to the Baltic states, which are distance and sea depth, which could be transformational here in developing Asia, but you actually have to do it. While at the lower end of the network, we see decentralized storage solutions substituting for very difficult network upgrades if you have a market regulation which is really supportive of that. Having said that, decentralized demand-side solutions and batteries are not a copy-paste replacement of conventional power generation. The average storage time of a battery being deployed is 2 hours. So those batteries are incredibly useful for frequency control, and they are incredibly useful for managing network bottlenecks. But when you have a country with a monsoon climate and you don't have wind for several weeks, that you cannot do with a battery. And given the current dominance of coal in the energy system of Asia, we also think that the increasing role of natural gas and especially the increasing role of liquefied natural gas, because Asia is importing gas from long distances, is a critically important part of the low carbon transition. So Asia will have to invest a lot into liquefied natural gas for the clean energy transition. There are very often very simplified messages that you should not invest in fossil fuels in a clean energy transition. That is not true. Liquefied natural gas is one of the fields where a significant investment is needed in Asia in order to achieve the transition. Now, in the transport sector, a 100 years dream is now coming true. Electric cars have been around for 100 years. Henry Ford purchased an electric car for his wife. But up until recently, they were very marginal. They are now going to transform the transport sector. But I also feel that in many countries in Asia, there is too much excitement about the $100,000 luxury cars, which are the privilege of the top 1%, and not enough attention of the things which would make a much bigger difference. Scooters, electric motorcycles, very, very important. Minivans and buses for public transport, easy to electrify and play a major role in big Asian cities. Ride-sharing vehicles, a very flourishing ride-sharing business is emerging in Asia, and that's a very good opportunity for electrification. And in the meantime, do your homework on reinforcing the distribution grid and roll out the charging infrastructure. The first 1% of electric vehicles can piggyback on the existing electricity network. Maybe the second 1% as well. 10%, I'm not sure. 100%, absolutely not. So we need to have some really significant long-term investments into electricity network. But we should not also forget that heavy-duty trucks actually represent a significantly bigger component of oil demand growth than personal vehicles. Now, there are companies like Tesla who are working on electric trucks. There are also companies like Toyota who are working on hydrogen fuel cell trucks. Which one will win? The honest answer is, I don't know. And as a policymaker, I don't want to pick the winner. I think this is a field where it is very appropriate to have a competition between alternative technologies driving innovation. But what we also see is digitization of the transport system can drive efficiencies at the system level. There are logistical systems like the logistical system of Amazon or Alibaba, which are relying on artificial intelligence and incredibly efficiently optimizing the use of logistical assets. And there are also countries where me and my brother-in-law own a truck and try to find some business, and half of the time the truck is running empty. And the difference between the two logistical systems, the potential energy efficiency that you can apply with digital logistics, we estimate it to be 4 million barrels per day. That's a very significant amount of oil and should be a priority for policymakers. Now, despite all the positive news on electricity, we very firmly believe that carbon capture and storage will have to play a role and has to come back to the game. Now, we see some positive signs that we have to be capitalized on. One is the United States, where the new tax reforms create a very robust business model for carbon capture and storage investment. China made its move. The first carbon capture acrid coal conversion project is now under construction. Whereas in Europe and also in Japan, there is an increasing research and development effort and venture capital investment into innovative carbon utilization pathways. This is not yet enough, and this needs to be scaled up and accelerated further. So this is how I see the role of innovation and technology, and thank you very much for innovation, and I'm looking forward for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Laszlo, for a very interesting presentation on the constraint and future of energy systems. We'll come back and for some discussions. Now I would like to invite our second keynote speaker, Mr. Dipal Chandra Barua, co-founder of Grameen Bank and founder and chairman of the Bright Green Energy Foundation in Bangladesh. Mr. Barua, please. Please have 15 minutes.
Good morning to all. Distinguished participants and Vice President ADB and the Dr. Yongping Zhai, the moderator and the two co-speakers. I'm very happy to be here. You have listened to the global picture from our keynote speaker, Araya, chief economist. And I believe the story of a village, Jobrai, born and brought up, Chittagong, southern part of the country, and also the story of Grameen Bank and Grameen Shakti, and finally the Bright Green Energy Foundation. So how we involve in a poverty elevation and also eventually energy to access, and eventually clean energy, the Asia Clean Energy Forum aiming for a low carbon technology and clean energy. I think Bangladesh played a very important role. In 1976, started a Grameen Bank project in Jobra. I used to attend university through a bicycle, by a bicycle in the university. University located, part of my village, Jobra in Chittagong. So attending university by a bicycle, then Jobra is near to university, so village become a laboratory for any kind of research and activities. So there was a deep tubewell, irrigation tubewell. After liberation, 1971, Bangladesh struggling with the agricultural production, food production, and poverty. So in that case, in Jobra, in my own village, one deep tubewell is not operating properly. There was a cooperative system, and the farmers blaming the cooperative that we don't get water in due time. And farmers, cooperative blaming the farmers that you are not paying the diesel price or kerosene price to run the deep tubewell. So we took a professor who was teaching economics, a student at that time in the university, and there are 4 students from my village attending different subjects, economics, political science, sociology, and other. So we make a group. We started a proposal to the farmers. We will give you all input, insecticide, fertilizer, irrigation water, and everything, and you cultivate the land. So they were not agree initially, how they don't believe in that kind of 3-share system, Tebaga, 3-share system. So finally we convinced the farmers in our village that the farmer will get 1 share, and the landowner will get 1 share, and the management who will provide all inputs, including water, fertilizer, everything. So that 1 share. There are sharecroppers. They don't have land, but they're the farmer. They call it sharecroppers. And there are some owners, they're all cultivating land. But there are absentee landowner. Their land is cultivated by others, sharecroppers. So there are 3-share system introduced in 74, 75. So that was the beginning. And it was interesting that all farmer cultivated land. We have a stream from the mountains, a small mountain hill, we can say. We cross them there, and gravity flow comes in the village, and so the deep tubewell water and the gravity flow from the stream, natural water, and then brings around 79 acres of cultivation. So our name, so my name is Dipal, Dipal block, Islam block, Amran block, like this. We 4 students manage the all farmers and giving water, fertilizer, and we show the line showing, so the improved farming system, and it was very wonderful. And at that time, we don't have the, and during harvesting time, we collect the 1/3 of the share. 2/3 of the share farmers and the landowner. So interestingly, we invited women to straw, to separate the paddy from the straw. So they get 40 kg of paddy, 1 kg of paddy, they get it. So they are the price in barter system. So then the women asking us, you have introduced a farming system, is good for farmers. There are 400 families in my village, so 200 families, they don't have any land. They don't cultivate. They do other activities, informal activities. So they say, if you introduce something different, then all people will be benefited. What kind of program they're asking? We take money from the money lenders, 120% interest rate at the end of the year, 20% per month. So the very exorbitant rate of interest. So then we talk to the local bank doesn't agree. Finally, we convince agricultural bank to lend a small amount of money. So we give a small amount of money to the rickshaw pullers. They are pulling rickshaw for 10 years, 20 years. They're not the owner of the rickshaw. Someone is the owner of the rickshaw. One rickshaw owner have a 2, 3, 5, 10 rickshaw, the rickshaw lot like this. So we give a money to buy a second-hand rickshaw. So they are passengers from the main road to the university. They have a good income. Within a while, they become the owner of the rickshaw. So they become the owner of the milk cow. They become owner of the small cane industry. So many things. So this was interesting. And then actually women giving the idea for a microcredit. And they say, we don't have any collateral facilities. So then we started. So this journey, in 1976 and 1983, it became an independent bank. And finally, in 2006, Grameen Bank received the Nobel Prize along with Professor Yunus, and it was in more than 200 countries. Grameen Bank idea replicated, inspired. Today, the relevancy about the Grameen Shakti, what I was the founding managing director in 1996. From 1976 to 1996, 20 years almost, we are traveling in the village every day to talk to the people about this. Every time they talk about the credit, but there is one question. We need electricity, we need power, otherwise we cannot work. Because at that time, 85% people have no electricity. Literally, more than 100 million people have no electricity. Right now, we have 80% people have electricity. At that time, 85% people have no electricity. So everybody asking about the electricity. So, and they have some rich farmer, they have a television, black and white. They bring battery from 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers for 3 days, and then carry the battery for charging again. So that was the situation. We thought we can, apart from microcredit, we can start a renewable energy things also. So we developed a Grameen Shakti from scratch, from drafting of the bylaws and everything. I was the founding managing director, so designed such a way. We started 3 programs: solar home system and biogas, improve cook stove, and wind energy also. Out of 3 programs, we finally see solar home system is growing, but one criticism, the cost is very high. We bought $7 per peak watt the first round, and then we bought from Siemens, from Australia, finally with the Japan Kyocera, they're the main supplier, and we give us a lot of pictures, and the Japan Nippon Airlines printed in their calendar, and also in the annual general meeting they discussed to reduce $1. At that time, $5 we buy per kilowatt and $4 for us especially. Eventually, you know, China came up in 2006 and 7, then the price goes down quickly, and it spread likely. So the economists have a skill working. As an economics background, we try to understand how people can repay the money. People are not able to buy the system, $300, $400 piece. We convince 1 or 2 school teacher to pay, but it was very important. 7 times we convince a customer to buy the system, not they're buying it because the price is very high. Finally, we convince some of the rich farmer. When we installed the system in 1996 in the village, so they invited us for dinner because so much enthusiasm, and people come and see on the television, black and white running, and so the farmer invited for dinner. I say dinner price is almost half of the solar energy price also. So that was an interesting case that people are changing. So it was inspiring us how we can make. Then we talked to the supplier. Actually, we learned from even the supplier how to install the system, and then we introduced a training program. 100,000 trainers we train, and I give a scholarship to the young women for to become a technician, an entrepreneur. So that was the journey, and it takes 10 years time to install almost 10,000 systems. But after the World Bank came up in 2003-4, and then we are installing 10,000 systems per day, like this. So it's growing better. The simple, at the cost of kerosene, you can buy a solar home system. 15% down payment, remaining you pay every month, saving money from kerosene. So it was wonderful, and now Bangladesh have a 5 million solar home system installed. Not only solar home system, and Bangladesh government also inspired now, they are also putting emphasis for the irrigation, solar rooftop, and also we have a land is very scarce item in Bangladesh, 800 megawatt already planned government, only 3 megawatt already in the grid line, and coming another 20, 30 megawatt. But actually the story of solar home system in Bangladesh, and it call came up with the World Bank and ADB and other funding agencies. So it is the best energy access model in Bangladesh. Now we are going for the second stage, how this rooftop program can be another revolution in Bangladesh. That the net metering things is coming up. I believe it will be an interesting case for Bangladesh because land is a very scarce item. In Bangladesh, it's very fertile. If you put anything grow, unless we cannot feed 160 million people in Bangladesh. So that's why everybody love to keep the land back and so for the cultivation and everything. Now we are also thinking floating solar. I believe Bangladesh is a country demonstrating anything that receive it and carefully they make it a world class. Garment industry now, and the number 2 in the world after China, but there was a problem in the quality of the garments factory. Now, the 1 to 10th garment factory, the best factory in Bangladesh because they have a renewable energy, they have environment friendly, so gradually changing. I think we are exporting even a solar panel. So we have 6 solar factory already installed, though most of the things coming from China, but also we have a LED factory. So it's coming up gradually. It can be independent, economically independent, so that recently become a developing country, and also we're a middle income country by after 2021, and our Prime Minister is serious. She's thinking by 2041, Bangladesh should be a developed country. So 7% growth rate is, I think the renewable energy created an enthusiasm in the ground level so that Bangladesh, 160 million people, everyone know solar energy, everyone knows solar home system. And now gradually irrigation. I believe this is an inspiration from the ground level. This Asia-Pacific region, ADB playing a very important role. We are going for new energy leaders. I think Asia-Pacific region, ADB playing a very important role, and they're also in the journey of solar home system, in journey of irrigation, in the journey of solar rooftop. So everything also ADB participate. I believe this is a story inspiring us, and I believe Bangladesh in the long run. Now I am working as a president of Bangladesh Solar and Energy Association, and also member of SREDA, Sustainable Renewable Energy Development Authority, that's created by government 4 years back. We are working together, responsible use of electricity. We are campaigning at things, and our friend from Monica from Costa Rica also, she's going to present how the fossil fuel is eliminated. In Bangladesh, we are thinking gradually, dependence on fossil fuel can reduce. We can try renewable energy more seriously because we have a plenty of sunshine, 365 days, 340 days with sunshine, sometimes raining, but after 1 hour there's a sunshine. I believe this is an enormous opportunity, and people are very creative. I believe Bangladesh would be a prestigious name in the future in renewable energy, and we are working hard so Bangladesh could be a first solar nation in the world. In our definition, more than 50% people using solar energy daily basis for their livelihood. This is a solar nation. So that's why we are aiming for a solar nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Varro, for sharing your fascinating story of making Bangladesh home of solar home systems. So now I would like to invite our third keynote speaker, Ms. Monica Araya, founder and director of Costa Rica Limpia. Thank you.
So I came from Costa Rica, and I checked last night, and it's about 16,000 kilometers. So you're probably wondering why I'm here. I'm very excited to be here. And the reason why I'm here is because big things are happening in that small country in Central America. So I'm going to tell you that story, hoping that there can be some lessons for you, because I'm sure a lot of you are champions and are trying to make the clean energy economy succeed. So this is normal for us, you know. I'm a citizen of a country that already runs on renewable electricity, from water, from heat from volcanoes. We have a lot of volcanoes. We have a lot of wind. We're very sunny. And there is biomass because there is agriculture, and therefore there is waste. So when you think about it, it's almost 100% renewable power already. So this could be a very short talk, because I could say, we got there, good luck, it's great, you know? So it would be a very short talk. We do have some fossil fuels for some plants, you know, we use some bunker fuels, but as you can see from the distribution, it's mostly hydro, wind, and geothermal. And the big question is how to do more solar. And we have to get rid of those bunker fuels. But the story I want to tell you today is not about electricity per se. It's about how to go fossil-free entirely in a country of 5 million people. 4 weeks ago, exactly the 8th of May, this happened in my country. Well, I'll tell you. This was a headline that went around the world. As you can see, This is a headline that, no, this is before a month ago. This is a headline that went around, you know, Costa Rica generates electricity for 300 days a year. But in the meantime, we know we have a problem with oil because we keep using oil for transportation. So the question is, the difficult question for us is how to get rid of that, how to get rid of this pollution. And this is when the story gets very interesting because this went viral. If you can see there is 118,000 shares. 118,000 people share this. Costa Rica is going to go fossil free. It's not necessarily a ban on fossil fuels, it's a phase out. But what was interesting is that this happened in my country a few weeks ago. This is our new president, Carlos Alvarado. He's 38, the youngest president in Latin America, and this is the president of Congress, 35. And in the speech, he said, we will be going fossil free. This is a top priority for my presidency. So this is exciting for us because there are not many countries out there where you have an inauguration of with a president that says, actually, decarbonization, and he used that word, is going to be a priority for us, and we will be one of the first countries in the planet that is going to go fossil free. So in the next minutes, I'm going to tell you how we got to this point, and very quickly, the trajectories that you could remember are related to, you can't really see the text in these trajectories, so I'm going to tell you the stories anyway because it's very easy for me to do that. So think about it like this. First trajectory in the 40s. What was the big idea then? Give people free education and free healthcare. And it happened, and then by the end of the decade, we got rid of the army. And then by the end of the 90s, we realized we ranked really high in terms of human development. So betting on people paid off. The second trajectory in green is a trajectory on natural capital. Bet on national parks, get rid of deforestation. Big bet paid off because now we are very good in terms of attracting tourists for ecotourism. So decarbonization started in the 90s when we got rid of deforestation while growing the economy and the population. And then the third trajectory that you see in blue, it started in the 50s. Big bet on renewable energy. When there was pressure to do coal in the 70s and the 80s, we said, no, thank you, we'll stick to hydro. And then, of course, then wind came in and geothermal. And here's the point. What do you think, if you were Costa Ricans, would be the next bet? The next bet, you can't really see the text. What it says in the yellow circle, you can't really read it, is a very important question for us. If you were in Costa Rica, if you were in San Jose right now, the question you would be asking is, wait a second, if all the electricity is renewable, why would we keep using oil for transportation if electricity can do the job? We heard before, we're going to electrify transportation anyway, the technologies are there. So what we do in Costa Rica, Limpia, this is something that was born 5 years ago, was to talk about fossil-free Costa Rica to citizens, to champions, to the media, to people in cities. Because sometimes people in politics or people in academia or in very technical discussions don't translate. So what we do is to go to people who are not technical and say, when you hear about carbon neutrality, carbon-free, decarbonization, Paris Agreement, what comes to mind? And they apologize because they don't know what to say, but the point of Costa Rica Limpia is translating that. So we told the story in 2016 at TED, you know, this platform for storytelling, and storytelling was very important because people were repeating the story. A small country with big idea, you remember that we got rid of the army? Well, we're gonna be getting rid of fossil fuels. We did it once, we can do it again. So storytelling has been very important for our work. We never imagined that we would have a president in 2018 that would say, hey, I actually wanna make this a top priority. So that is why it's got very interesting. And in terms of what we do with people, what we say is, you know, if we succeed with decarbonization, it's about your life. Everyday life will improve because that day, if we go fossil-free, will be a day where we will not have exhaust pipes. Un país sin muflas, we say. And this is about also creating very important symbols that we're doing all of this in these forums, these investments, because why? Well, because we want a better life for most people, hopefully all people. And then the other thing we insist on is that going electric, these beautiful buses, I think electric buses are beautiful. These buses are there. We can bring them to the country because it's about our health. So it's not about what Costa Rica can do to global emissions, which is very small. It's about our health. And then, of course, you have to work, and I think that has been a big lesson in Costa Rica. It's about identity. Do polls. In Costa Rica, the polls show people feel proud of renewable energy. Even if the country has some problems, people say, no, but when it comes to electricity, I feel proud. So we insist on, you know, we want to be a great country, pura vida country. It has to be zero emissions. Come on, we can do it. And then, of course, for a country that lives off tourism, think about it. Think big. If all these people come to our country to view these beautiful, beautiful national parks, why would they go and drive cars that leave you all this pollution? So we can be the hub for electric routes, where no matter where you go in the country, you can go with an electric van or a car, or, you know, car sharing. But even in Costa Rica, there is resistance to change because we are humans and we don't like to change. We know that from science. We resist it, we resent it. So even in Costa Rica, it's difficult. So it's not a fairy tale, you know, it's difficult. It's great, but you know, you have to work really hard. And of course, you can't see the text, but I know what is there, so I'm gonna tell you. Because it's my work, it's my life. In the first box, you would have seen something that says roadmap. Roadmap is important to a lot of you because roadmap is about technical pathways, technological pathways, financing, instruments, the nitty-gritty work, the workshops, the disagreements among experts, and all the effort is very important because you show this is doable. And you have to have scenarios, and I know you know how to do this technical roadmap work. In the second column, the important thing is you would have read something that says coalition. And by that I mean the coalition of champions. Society changes because of champions, people who challenge convention, people who go out and say, you know what, we've been doing it this way for 30 years, it was great, it doesn't work anymore, let's change it. If you want to do solar or electric mobility, anything you want to do, you need to know who these champions are. And then in the third space is public opinion. Talk to any mayor or politician, they tell you, if public opinion is with me, it's easier. It's not easy, but it's easier. So we do a lot of work also with the public. And the point is to make zero emissions the new normal, to make it part of something normal, something good. So we did the roadmap. You can download it. It's about how to electrify Costa Rica. We have been insistent that it's a small country. We have the conditions. 92% of houses have garages, so a lot of the charging is at home. It's a small country. The government also did the roadmap recently. It's very similar to what we proposed. Of course, you can't really see the text, so I know again what it says. But basically, the champions are a combination in my country of people in government. A woman in Congress made a whole difference. It's important to find your allies. And then, of course, never underestimate the role of early adopters, pioneers, people who believe in clean technology that show it's doable. And of course, you also have to have money, and you have to bring CEOs and financial experts. And we managed to put together this coalition. We put together also an association that makes the user visible, because the user and consumers at the end of the day are the ones who buy things and vote for people. So the users and consumers are important. We do a lot of this, a lot of festivals, a lot of events with people interacting with the buses, a lot of videos. That's me. I love electric buses. I love a lot of things, but electric buses is one of those things. And people love the videos because they don't know, they have never seen them. So now I'll tell you a bit in a few minutes. This is critical, you know, working with people, asking them what they think, not just telling them what they have to think. And of course, public opinion being supportive is critical. The work we did has delivered a law, and the law has benefits for 5 years for these technologies. And the one key point I want to emphasize, it has a commitment for the state. It has to electrify at least 10% of the fleets. So what's next? Next is a lot of work. And it's interesting because now that the president said this, he wants to know what he has to do on Monday. What do you say? Meanwhile, because of Paris and the SDGs, we have to do trajectories to 2050, to 2030, the NDC, as you know. The SDGs have a lot of process embedded into it. So the balance we have to find, and it's difficult, is the long-term view, the pathways, plus being able to say to a politician, this is what you should be doing on Monday. You know, and we're going through this. Second, we have to implement the law. It was a big victory to win this law, the first one in Latin America, zero-emission mobility, and we have to deliver the infrastructure. So the first tranche of infrastructure will come in the next 8 months. And today, I missed the big launching of this, the electric, can you imagine I missed it? But I'm here, I really wanted to come. So today, the electric bus initiative was launched a few hours ago in Costa Rica, in San Jose. And 4, the bidding process for the electric train, which has been blocked many times, but the First Lady, who's an architect, is leading these negotiations, so hopefully this is gonna be by 2021. And finally, an unprecedented demand for bikes. It's happening everywhere around the world. Bikes, 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 electric bikes, bike paths. The actual president of Congress chose to work in a bike. So it's a cultural thing. The inauguration of the president had bikes and it had an electric bus. In this case, it was hydrogen, but the big bet will be in battery electric. And of course, integrating solar is critical because it's a cultural shift. The new generation doesn't want hydro, they want solar. So it's a very interesting thing for the older generation. Finally, and here's where we need help. We can deal with this in the discussions, but basically the integration of new renewables in Costa Rica, a renewable country, comes at a time where there is a push in the Americas for natural gas. And if there is one country in the planet where natural gas doesn't make sense, it's ours, because we already went renewable. So why would you go back to a fossil fuel? Public transit is difficult to reform. Our Ministry of Transportation is weak. So it's difficult to do this big transformation when institutions are slow. Heavy transport, you mentioned trucks. We don't know where the technology will go, but trucks are a big problem, and we need to leapfrog as opposed to getting into, oh, let's do a little bit of cleaner gasoline. And then, of course, green taxes. We depend on gasoline taxes. So some people say, no, let's consume more gasoline because we need more revenues. So we really have to think hard about how to reform our taxes, and it's difficult. And finally, we need to finance this. Zero emissions, think big, but the infrastructure financing is coming at a time where we have a lot of fiscal constraints. So finally, this is where the abolition of fossil fuels would take place, we kept saying. And it did happen. It did happen 4 weeks ago. He did say it, and he said it exactly there, which was very symbolic. So the final point is that we are a very young nation. We're going to be 200 years old in 2021. And in 2021, the idea is to say, 200 years ago, we became independent from Spain. 70 years ago, we abolished the army. And in 2021, we're going to start our road to independence from fossil fuels. So wish us good luck, and please come join us and let's cooperate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Monica, for your very, very inspiring keynote speech. I'm very keen to ask you a first question as moderator. But before that, I would like to share also a personal story that on that basis will ask each of you one question with that as a background. As a part of my job, I've been traveling to a few countries like Pakistan, India, Nepal, and Myanmar. That in each of these 4 countries I visited ADB-financed mini microgrid project in villages. Typically, this visit took 5 to 10 hours by road to reach those villages. And once I'm in there, my first reaction kind of thing is that this is a place very, very far from things we talk about here, even here today, things like self-driving car, IoT, sometimes blockchains. They don't understand this, but having a conversation with villagers, I figured out that what they require in terms of energy, three things. One, something that's available, can use it. Secondly, cheap, if possible, free. Third, clean, no dirty smoke, it's clean. So these three requirements, if we use our own language, we're very familiar at ADB, it could be something like energy security, right? Affordability, and environmental sustainability. So if I look at our own mini-grid, microgrid project in these countries, I think that we deliver maybe one or two of these three requirements from villages, but not the three at the same time. So my question to Monica, first question to you, would be whether you believe Costa Rica or any country you know that in terms of energy supply, energy system, there is a chance to meet at the same time all three requirements from these villages, from population, that the energy is available, cheap, and clean. That's first question to you, Monica, whether it's possible, can refer to your case of Costa Rica when you celebrate time that the country will be fossil fuel free, whether we can also celebrate that we have achieved all these three objectives that people are looking for. That's first question to Monica. Then I'll turn to, with the same story, but a question to our friend from IEA, Mr. Laszlo. Do you believe if I want to achieve the three objectives, and this is a trilemma, whether technologies can help? What kind of technology can help, and how to bring this high-tech, the technologies we talk about here, closer to people in remote areas to resolve their problems? So question to you on technology. And I will end my just one round of questions to our panelists with Mr. Barua, whether you think that business models, financing instruments, new financing schemes could also help to deliver these three objectives. I hope I've made my questions clear, and I would like to start with Ms. Monica, whether you can share your feedback on that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. I think, at least in my experience, when you go to people, when you actually take time, and we take time by doing consultations with citizens from 9 to 5 is a methodology we learned. When you actually listen to people, what they want and what they need it tends to be pretty straightforward. You know, it's like, if you go and say, what is it that you want right now in a country that is 70% urban, and where 99.6% of the population has access to electricity already. What they say, they close their eyes and they say, I want to get to my work early and come back home quickly. That's it. It's not I want to change in the system, or they don't think in terms of energy system. They just want things that work. And I think what is interesting is that then when you go to very different environments and you have technical people and you have big ideas, okay, like let's do electric buses for Costa Rica. That's where it gets complicated, because no, it can't be done, it's too expensive, we have all these other priorities, how are we gonna fund it? And I think both conversations are very important, but if you don't have the force to say, it's not about whether we should do it or not, or it's how we do it. I think it's a very different conversation, because in my experience in Latin America, we're too caught up into experts telling us it can be done, we should postpone, it's too expensive, there are other priorities. And it's the urgency of the people that has allowed us in Costa Rica to say, no, but wait, you know, there are benefits that are never discussed. So one point I would like to stress is that always be very good at getting people with technical backgrounds that can talk to you about the benefits, because otherwise the conversation is all about the costs and why this is expensive. And yes, sometimes good development is more expensive than dirty development, but it's good in the long term. And the other thing I would say is that you don't want to change everything at the same time, because then you make your life more complicated. So I have a problem when I go to environments where people say, oh, we have to change the entire food system and the entire transportation system and the entire consumption system and the entire financial system. I don't know what to do with that idea. It's too much. So my lesson in Costa Rica is that by taking one sector, in this case, transportation, which could solve so many problems for the everyday life, then you can create a precedent, and the precedent allows you to say, you see, it's doable. So I'm not saying that it's the same case for Philippines or for your country or your country. Every country has a different urgency. But what I would say is choose something that you can showcase as a grand idea that has a lot of benefits, and then it's easier to work out the technical aspects. But don't just let the experts tell you it cannot be done, because then you won't do it.
Okay, thank you, Monica. Now, Mr. Laszlo, what's your feeling?
Yeah, so first of all, let's be honest and let's not have illusions. There are trade-offs in energy policy. So if you try to design a system with a 99% reliability, that's going to be much, much cheaper than a system with a 99.9% reliability. So there is a trade-off between energy security and the cost of the system, and that's just how it is. And there is also a trade-off between the emission levels of the system and the cost of the system. There is a reason why the world economy has relied on fossil fuels for more than 100 years, and that reason is not that we are stupid or evil. It is not easy to phase out fossil fuels, and by all means, if you have 75% hydropower, don't go back using natural gas, of course. But unfortunately, the countries or the regions which have the geographical potential to have 75% hydropower, that's not uniform. You either have that hydro potential geographically or you don't have the hydro potential geographically. And definitely when you design a new microgrid in a remote region, probably the first question you should ask that is there a potential to have a micro hydro project which would beautifully accompany your solar. If you can do that, it will make life much, much easier. Having said that, if you have a 2/3 renewable, 1/3 natural gas combination, which is the global average in our sustainable development scenario for electrification, I mean, a 2/3 renewable, 1/3 natural gas combination is fantastically better than a coal-based electrification. So don't make the best enemy of the good, because very often you can make progress. You can make progress by having some reasonable compromises. So in terms of where the technology helps, well, we have, of course, the wind, solar, electricity storage triangle, but we should also be careful not to overhype electricity storage. Okay. So in the case of solar and wind, the progress has been absolutely remarkable, and we already have the cheap and technologies ready to be rolled out. Now, we also have to get that for wind, the direction of technological progress is that wind turbines keep getting bigger and bigger. So wind is not an ideal technology if we want a small-scale microgrid. Wind is a heavy-duty, large-scale utility generating technology. There it plays a fantastically important and fantastically useful role. But for a small-scale microgrid, if you only have solar and storage, that's not an easy solution. Especially once you consider the fact that you build a solar microgrid in a remote region, and initially people would want a LED light and a mobile phone charger, a couple of 100 watts. But then, if everything goes well, the kids go to school, they get a proper job, they get some income, and then another 5 years later, they buy a refrigerator, they buy a washing machine, they buy a television, and suddenly we are talking about several kilowatts instead of a couple of 100 watts. So eventually, you would need to go beyond solar only, use only hydro, use also hydro, use also geothermal, use biogas, connect the microgrid to the national system. So you have to design the system to be able to scale up and to be able to be modular. And I also would say that, yes, you shouldn't start with blockchain in a remote village. Having said that, we've also seen that IT innovation has played an incredibly important role. A lot of the success of decentralized solar systems is based on mobile micropayments and modern IT solutions. So linking the payment system with modern IT and modern technology, I think that's also a very important innovation area.
Thank you. Mr. Barua, please.
Yeah. Thank you. I think in early stage we develop system. First we try technology is working or not. The solar home system say. If technologies work, then we can go for a financial viability and the social acceptance. That's why initially we tried it was not cost effective. Price was very high and a lot of resistance on the ground level said we don't like to buy it, it's very high. But eventually we introduce a financing mechanism. 6 months, people say it should be 1 year, then 1 year, gradually it go up to 3 years. An ownership model, because if you have ownership, they maintain the system. Otherwise, if you get anything free or a low interest rate loan, so they don't like to pay. So that's why you need an ownership model also. And we found from our experience, it should be cost effective and also socially acceptable. So 3 is financial viability and social acceptance. Because now, along 20 years the line, see the new reality came up. So the solar home system almost in every house. So everybody, now we train all women as a customer. Man is busy. So, and also train 100,000 technicians, so they are available in the now. So there is a little bit seems perfect competition. So now the solar energy, anybody can buy and fix it in the village from the store. So this is a kind of a household name. I think this is now a commercial bank, any financial institution in the next door, they can get a green energy, clean energy loan and they can install it. But for the irrigation, we are doing almost 1,000 solar irrigation install, but financial model is not still clear, but we're working hard on that. Unless a kind of a field testing and the willing to pay of the farmers, if they say there is a grant element is there, farmers always think that, oh, there is a grant, so grant is for us, so we don't like to pay. So there is you need a kind of a model we have to testing it gradually, but they are paying half then the diesel price. But still, payment, and we need a maintenance. So in that case, I think we need some ground testing and gradually we develop a financial model also. In mini grid also same, because people are comparing with the grid electricity. In the 2 kilometer area there is a grid electricity, price is only 10 taka, but mini grid charging 30 taka. So they are comparing with the grid. So there's a kind of a sensation comes in their mind. We are deprived, we are paying more for the mini grid, but the electricity people paying 1/3 or 1/4 of the price. So that's a psychological things come up. In that case, we need to work hard how to create a more income generation, and because mini grid have a 1,000 connection possibility, but only 250 connection. So it takes time. After 10 years, then you have to change battery. So there is a cost involved. In that case, we need to find a fine-tuning of the business model. But technology is working. In Bangladesh, I think without technology working and financial viability, it cannot scaling up. Unless scaling up, the cost cannot be down. So the solar home system, because of huge scaling up, then it was cost effective. Even in different country, they have a prepaid system. We don't introduce 20 years back because prepaid you introduce $50, $100 increase in the price of the package. We do in a cost effective way. But situation is changed after 20 years. So one model size fits all is not we need a flexible. Yesterday, our Farid Khan also mentioned for Islamic Development Bank in the Turkish experience. If you give a flexibility, then you can find a good business model on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Varro. And from what you are telling me, I think if next time I go to visit them, I have better answers to. I think basically that we need to have a clear vision, but things will happen in sequence and by modular maybe, and the financing instruments should also adapt to that process. We have time for one or two questions from the audience. I would like to invite someone who has a question you must ask before we end in 5 minutes. Any question from one? Okay, entertain one or two questions. Okay. Yeah.
Good morning. So thank you so much for a nice presentation. And I'd like to ask one question to Monica, because you have a nice and fantastic presentation. We all enjoyed it. And with the continuation of the clapping, you could understand that how much impressive it was. So thank you so much again. I would like to know one thing. In Costa Rica, how the solar systems are connected, whether it is grid-tied or off-grid. That is my first question. And if you say, ideally, it's not possible to convert all the systems of the electricity to solar energy because of the storage problem, you know it very well. So I'm from Bangladesh. I'm just heading a distribution company, government-owned company in Bangladesh, managing director. So I'd like to know, because I have some lands with islanded land. So there we are actually distributing power to the consumers by generating electricity diesel.
Okay, please.
So there I need to introduce solar energy. But the business model is not working there because you know the price hike or the excessive price of the diesel generation and also the solar generation. So how the business model can be formulated in that way?
Okay, so thank you for the question. I would like to
request
Monica to give a brief answer before I try to close in time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment and your question. This is exactly the difficult conversation that we're having right now. As you can imagine, a country that has built a whole energy or electricity system around hydro has created an army of experts around hydro. They train themselves in hydro, and then boom, you have this revolution around solar energy. And all the new generation that becomes, that trains themselves as energy engineers, they want to do solar. And they face the reality of an institution, because the utility is owned by the state, that is very biased. And it's the reality of it. So we have that. We have right now a very generational discussion between hydro and solar. So there is that. Second, we have a state-owned utility that has done a good job. 99.6% of the population has access to electricity. But of course, is one of the few countries where you have the private sector saying, we want to invest in renewable energy. And most of the generation comes from the state. So it's only 20% that can be produced by companies. And of course, they have already capped that. So the question is, how do you do solar? So what is happening is you have all these small entrepreneurial companies wanting to do solar. And frankly, it's been very scary for the utility because many are saying we'll go off grid. And they have estimated that they are going to lose around 9% of electricity demand. And of course, the good news is that with electric mobility, the impact on the demand is around 10% based on the scenarios, some basic scenarios we have. So right now, the utility is a little bit more relaxed about the increments in solar that we are expecting because now with electric mobility, they see some reasons to be more optimistic about electricity demand in a country that has not increase demand as fast as we thought we would. But the bigger point is that right now, the studies from the Inter-American Development Bank for Costa Rica show that solar is the option, especially for the dry season, which is when we have some problems with hydro. And we haven't solved the question of how we're going to do it because of regulatory realities, but it is one of the areas where we have to go deeper because, again, if we don't go deeper into a new model, the pressure that we have in the Americas is an intense lobby for fossil fuel natural gas.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Monica. And I will close this session, panel discussion, by continuing my story I started. Actually, I came back with that question to some of colleagues here, also including participants yesterday. They asked me how ADB financed those mini grid. I said by grant money, and they asked me why do you use grant? Because it can be done commercially. So actually, I was very impressed that indeed there are already viable commercial solutions to the question I already asked. With that, I would like to thank our panelists and also thank you for all your participation until now with us for last hour. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry, we have one last item for the opening plenary, and this is a chance for us to highlight a new program, the New Energy Leader. So you can please grab your seats. Yongping, if you can join me over here. And I believe we're going to start off with a video highlighting the program, and then I'm going to turn it over to Yongping for the awards. So please, if you can run the video.
Clean energy is a huge field in my opinion, and it's an ever-growing field. Old ways of generating energy are on a decline. Most of the newer sources of energy generation are going to be from cleaner technologies.
因为能源呢是一个系统，清洁能源呢是其中的一个组成部分，而且是一个重要的组成部分。随着人民的呼声，还是国家的意志，还是政策的导向，清洁能源就代表着绿色进步，而且是需要我们去呵护的一方力量。
It is just not about giving them lights, it's also helping them earn income, earn revenue. Technology and clean power is playing a big role in helping the economies of the villages grow.
In today's world, we are addressing a lot of serious issues for climate change, water and air pollution. We need innovation. Only innovation can solve the issue.
It is a very nascent field set on a stage for massive explosion. Any such industry which is just going to explode rapidly requires very young and dynamic people on the forefront. The youth have the greatest responsibility to shoulder this mandate.
Thank you very much. I like the video. That's saved me time to explain what is a New Energy Leaders Program. I would just say that New Energy Leaders are chosen by a selection committee of dynamic clean energy entrepreneurs, investors, industry leaders, and experts from across the world. I would like to thank each one of the steering committee members for their contribution to the program. These are the selection steering committee member. The program, as you have seen, that was first launched last year, and last year it was launched in the Asia Pacific Forum for Low Carbon Technology in Hunan, China. And this year we come back with a fresh batch of new energy leaders. We gather here to launch this second batch of new energy leaders. And this year we have over 50 submissions, applications to apply. The committee has made a selection of 7 candidates representing 7 developing countries that we trust to the best spokespersons on innovation and entrepreneurship in our continent and the Pacific. So I would like to now welcome the New Energy Leaders 2018 batch on stage. I will read out their name. I have a booklet. I will start inviting Mr. Hussein Akbareli from Sri Lanka first. Then we have Ms. Tida Kiv from Cambodia. We have Mr. Leandro Leveste from the Philippines. We have Mr. Angel Nirala from Nepal. Ms. Nguyen Pin Truan from Vietnam. And Mr. Min Cham Wing from Myanmar. And Ms. Wang Chunguang from People's Republic of China. And also I would like to invite our Vice President to give the award together with our committee members who are present here. Mr. Barua, Mr. Danny Kennedy, Ms. Rica, and Daniel Hurston to provide the award to our selected. Yes, Woochong. Our DG Woochong, please, coming. Mm-hmm. So, how do we provide the? Okay. Yeah. West. So how? This is the first award from Sri Lanka. So I'll have to. So sorry. Please. So please from first one from Sri Lanka. Can you give one to they? Yeah, they can. We'll do it. Okay, with the awards given, I would like to request all of the last batch from 2017, the new energy leaders, join us for a group family picture with the new batch together, please. So have a group picture.
Okay, while this picture is being taken, I just want to thank you for joining this morning, and we're just going to run through a few general house rules for a moment. So if I can ask you to just sit tight while this goes. Great. We've displayed it on the screen. All right, thank you. Congratulations to the new energy leaders. So just want to, a couple things for general information. You can see that the main forum, all the tracks will be held in these forums. We'll be splitting these up to different rooms over the coffee break, and the deep dive workshops will then be held again tomorrow. So although, on Friday, like yesterday. For lunches, we have them in the executive dining room. And you can see, again, join us tonight, please, for a reception from 6 to 8 p.m. And lastly, I want to highlight two things for the presentations. You can get that from the mobile app or the ASEF website. And then one last final thing that I think is important for you to know is that we have our raffle on Friday where we're giving, or Thursday at the closing session, where we're giving away 8 iPads, and we encourage you to join for that. And to be entered into that, you need to fill in the evaluation form. All right, thank you everyone, and we look forward to a coffee break.